So I'm I don't know what to say right now. I don't know where to begin, but I know I need to start saying things because this world right now is really, really in an interesting spot. And I think a lot of people are going down the wrong direction right now. Um, I think a lot of people are setting themselves up for some very, very challenging things in the future. And this is King Arthur, by the way. He's awesome. He doesn't care, and he's very wise. So, yeah, I just finished watching a video of an Irish boy getting stabbed in England, or sorry, in Ireland. I don't know why I said England. And I saw some of the Twitter follow-up comments on it, and they were outlining exactly what's happening there, because there's a view of reality right now that one can take where we're divided by race, and where for certain groups of people have been systematically oppressed for a long time, and where they are now rising up, and there's an actual war going on. There's a race war happening right now on this planet. And I think it's wrong to adopt that view. I don't think that there is a race war. It's so fucking hard to say what I want to say because there's so many different inputs coming in, like so much information coming at everyone right now. It's like, how do we even discern what the truth is? Because there's the black people saying that they're systematically oppressed and that they're 2.5 times more likely to be shot by police, and that, that the new Jim Crow laws, and this is all absolutely true. Like, they're absolutely true that, half the people in America are minorities and half of them are in there for nonviolent drug offenses. And these drug offenses were basically created as a way to keep them, to keep slavery for free. Because that's where you're allowed to have free slaves in America, is by having prisoners. And so that was 100% intentionally done, and private prisons are a fucking sick and disgusting thing. But then you have the other side, which is saying, well, hey, this problem, you can't blame white people for that. Yes, injustices happened in the past, and shit has been fucked up for a lot of people on all sides of everything. Everyone has been oppressed at some point by governmental forces, by economic forces, by the upper class, by billionaires, by another race, by another gender. There's all these fucking ways that we can cut it up and divide and play the victim and say, well, that group over there did this to me. But if you look at it from a different perspective, well then, hey, it's pretty fucking different right now. People like to point the fingers at white males and say white males are this, white males are that. But white males, did you know white males in middle-aged males have the highest suicide rate? Killing themselves more than anyone else? That they lose, they're not in prison, but they're fucking miserable. You can't judge things based off of how much money someone fucking makes and be like, they make more money. Oh, they're fucking not happy because of the money. I think some of the happiest cultures on the planet are cultures that don't even have shit for money. They just live in harmony with the earth. They grow their own food. And by many standards, they're in extreme poverty, and they're suffering, and they're oppressed, and they're struggling, and whatnot, and blah, 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 blah. But they're fucking still connected to the earth. And if you go back and you look at the history of white people and the tribal indigenous cultures of Indo-European natives, they were fucking massacred by the Romans. They were massacred. Massacred and slaughtered. And their culture, you know, all this shit that happened to the natives' cultures here in America, in Canada, it happened to us. It happened to white people a long fucking time ago. I read this book, The Hidden History of Healing. It talked about how they intentionally went and targeted the bards, the druids, the wisdom keepers, the medicine people. They branded them as witches. They cut down Thor's tree. They cut down Freya's tree. These were plants that had been held sacred by the druids, and they intentionally targeted it to go and fuck up that culture. And then people want to say, and then they got colonized. Yeah, white people got colonized, you know, and it became this whole sick thing with the Christianity mind control Byzantine system placed in when the Romans realized that it was easier to control a population through mind control and glorifying being a slave. You know, pick up your cross and carry it too. That was easier than fucking controlling them by force, because these tribes were not about to take that. So then they got colonized. And then our very culture got sucked away, which is why people say in the world, you know, white people have no culture. Motherfucker, look at the history of the Celtic people. Look at the history of the Nordic people. Look at the beautiful stuff they were creating before this bullshit colonization happened. Look at that. And you know what? Maybe try having some fucking compassion for white people. And white people, try having some fucking compassion, because the same wounds that other people are freaking out about and rioting about in the streets right now, they're in you too. They're in you too. They're just deeper and more buried and more suppressed and more repressed. And we're just not aware of it. We're just not aware of the anger and the disconnection that we feel and the rage that we should be feeling towards the fucking police too. Towards the fucking government. You know, the word government actually means governare and mens. Governare means to control. Mens means the mind. All systems of government are inherently designed to enslave people. And they do it through emotional mind control. They do it through physical violence. They do it through having a monopoly on violence, because the police and the military are the only ones who are legally allowed to be violent. This is why they want to take your guns away. In other countries, they're just fucking doing it. Thankfully, in America, we've got some people who are willing to stand up and say, no, you're not taking over, you know, come and get it. Much respect to those people. Big respect to those people. And minority communities should fucking do that too. I've seen people hold the signs that say, armed minorities are harder to oppress. You think? Really? You know, when people, it's really interesting on that note, how people say that the people who went and protested, who are mostly white people, but not all white people. The media wants you to believe it was all white people, but it wasn't. The people who went and protested against the fucking lockdown, which, by the way, what happened to that? Why aren't these protests being condemned as selfish and irresponsible when there's thousands and thousands of people gathering together in a spot? It seems like it'd be a real hot spot for a virus. But no. Actually, sorry, the hot spots were just the little mom and pop stores. Not the big box stores, not the liquor stores, not the marijuana dispensaries, the churches, the temples, the birthday parties. That's how you get a virus. Not through going to a protest or a Walmart. That's sanctioned by the police class. But that's a whole nother story. But the people who are going out and protesting that bullshit lockdown because it was fucking killing the economy, destroying people's lives in a very real way, and they went out and they were strapped, you know, carrying big guns. Everyone made fun of them. Called them terrorists. Said, oh, if a minority did that, they'd get shot. You know what, though? The thing is, they didn't go out and they didn't spray paint shit. They didn't smash shit. They didn't loot stores. What the fuck are you doing looting fucking stores? Why? Why? How is that going to make anyone less racist? How is that going to make anyone more tolerant of your viewpoint, more empathetic and compassionate towards the struggles that you face? More in recognition of the victimhood that you perceive that you have in society. How is that going to help? It's not. We all have to learn to control our anger and channel it and focus it and communicate. in a way that is effective. And I know people are out there going, well, we've been trying to communicate and it's not working, so now we're gonna smash it. No! There are people who are just as pissed off about other aspects of society. You don't see them out rioting. Most people, I would say, are aware and conscious and awake, and they're ready. And my cat wants to go outside right now, so I'm going to let him outside. Let's go, Arthur. Oh, go. Go. Be free. Be free. And I would say most people are aware and conscious and awake. And you know what? They're going to remember. They're going to remember what's happening right now. They're going to remember who pulled the plug on the entire economy, who told everyone they had to stay home. They're going to remember then that when these protests happened and people were out smashing and looting and rioting in the streets and standing in really close proximity, there was no fucking talk about a fucking virus. Suddenly the issue just shifted dramatically. It's like, oh, wow. And then you might just notice, too, that it's also an election year, and the very first time that Black Lives Matter trended was 2016. Right around this time, it peaked in July. Original search terms, if you look on Google, it peaks in July, and then it's flat until 2020. Whoa. And then it's going to peak in July. It's the exact same fucking tactic. And so this leads me to think at least, that, hey, this is not a legitimate, authentic movement. This is a planned political weapon to tap into the collective pain of the Black community. And I'm not saying African American, because you know what? Not all of them are fucking American. There's a lot of Black people around the world. There's a lot of red people around the world. There's a lot of yellow people around the world. There's a lot of white people around the world. That's how I judge it. 4 tribes, you know? Medicine wheel. Black, red, yellow, white. Hopi myths. Look it up. Hopi legends. Talks about the rainbow tribe when we all come together. But coming together and smashing shit, it's not going to help. It's not going to help anyone. And letting your culture's pain be used as a political weapon, it's not going to help. And this goes to white people as well. White people letting your guilt be used on the other side. This is dialectic, right? Everyone right now is like, well, I'm for Black Lives Matter. That's what my sister said in a text yesterday. She said, I'm with BLM. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Like, you support literally everything that they say? You're just like, totally. And this is how a lot of people like to make decisions. They're just like, this group good, that group bad. I'm with this group. You know, that was Hillary's whole slogan in 2016, which is why she fucking lost, because her slogan was, I'm with her. That's not something, that's clearly just creating a divide. It's, I'm with her, I'm with him. Oh, I'm against him. Meanwhile, Trump's slogan, you know, however you feel about him, you got to respect the fact that his marketing slogan was infinitely better than hers, because his was, make America great again. That's about all of us, whether you believe or not that he is actually fulfilling on that promise, whether you believe that he is creating further division or trying to heal the country, no matter what you believe, you got to recognize that the slogans were fundamentally different. Make America Great Again is unification. I'm with her is division. You can't be with her and with him at the same time. You can't be for her and for him unless you're in that framework that this was set up. And it's the same thing right now with Black Lives Matter, because there's not a lot of people out there, like people say, you know, Black Lives Matter. And then people say, well, all lives matter. And that's not fair. That's not a fair thing to say back to that, because the Black community is saying, hey, we feel like we're being oppressed. We feel like we're being imprisoned and enslaved. We're still in this old mindset. We feel like it's not fair. And coming back and saying, it's like, I saw this great analogy that was like, you know, if everyone got dinner at a table and you didn't get dinner and you say, hey, I should get dinner. And then your dad says, well, everyone should have dinner. It's like, yeah, that's my fucking point, dumbass. I feel like I didn't get dinner. I literally did not get dinner. And the thing about Black Lives Matter that people need to realize is there's a 2 at the end. It's Black Lives Matter 2. Now, so that's what they're saying. They're not saying Black lives are the only lives that matters. They know all lives matter. But they are saying Black Lives Matter 2. Now, here's the issue with that. Here's my issue with that. Is it is making the assumption that white people have it really good. That white people aren't scared of police too. I don't know about you, but I'm fucking terrified of those fucks. Like, I'm not, walking around in fear because that's not how I move through the universe. I choose not to give into that fear. But police, I saw a video, I forget his name, but it was heartbreaking, of this dude in a hotel, a white guy, so no one cared about this. There was no fucking protest in the street over this, because that's the hypocrisy that we're facing right now, because this pain is being weaponized. But this dude was in a hotel, and they got some report that he had a gun or something, and they came in, and this officer, you could just tell from the way he was talking to him, he wanted to shoot him. You could just feel it. And he had him do all this crazy stuff. He had him get down on the ground and start crawling towards him, and I think the guy on the ground was drunk, and he was coming towards him, and the guy on the ground reached back to pull his pants up because his pants were falling down, and bam, 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 the officer shot him. And it was totally unjustified, totally unnecessary. It was so clear that this guy, he was crying and begging them, please don't shoot me, please don't shoot me. And there's this other guy, Tony Timpa, I remember his name. Mentally ill guy, off his meds, had schizophrenia. Cops came, put him in a chokehold, choked him out, killed him. No one cared, because he was white. And he was actually mentally ill, and they were laughing and joking with him after he died. They were like, haha, you sleeping, buddy? Hey, wake up, nap time's over. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And George Floyd, that's a very complex issue to discuss, okay? This was a career criminal who's now being buried in a golden casket, who had methamphetamine and fentanyl in his body at his time of death. And then the police officer was clearly a dick too. I'm not saying he was a good guy. I'm just saying, this is what happens when stupid meets stupid, and one of them happens to have a badge and think that he's the ultimate arbiter of the law, and the other one happens to be on drugs. Bad shit happens. It's not about the fucking color of the skin, people. And going out, but no. See, here's the other thing too, is now people are going to look at me and say, well, you're just a white privileged male who can't actually understand this issue because of the color of your skin, and you don't actually understand, and you just need to shut up and listen. Fuck you. Fuck you if you say that. Because you know what? If you're saying that, you're trying to silence my voice just because of the color of my skin. I am aware of my privilege. I am aware that I have lived a relatively easy life. I am aware that I get to dedicate my time to art and to music and to things, and I don't have to worry about basic levels of survival because I know I'm covered because of my family's status and our position and blah, blah, blah. I'm aware of that. That doesn't mean that I'm not accurately able to see reality. And if you want to talk about listening to experience, I spent 5 years going door to door selling kids' educational books. 5 summers throughout university. I talked to 20,000 families across America. I worked in areas where it was 100% black. I worked in areas where it was 100% white. I worked in rich areas that had Ferraris in the driveway and big gates. And I worked in areas where, there was crack dealers out on the corner. I saw it. I talked to people of all walks and all races and all lifestyles, and I listened to their stories. And I was focused mostly on the education system in America. And I saw it's failing everyone equally. And so I'm not going to say like, hey, it's really, well, no, it wasn't failing everyone. There were some schools and some students who were well adapted to it, but there were just as many, poor broke ass white people who were struggling to get by, who had drug problems in the family, who had friends and family in prison, who were struggling, who were hurting. And as there were black people. It's on both sides here, and we've got to focus on the actual issues and not make it about the race thing. Because the issues are poverty, the issues are imprisonment, the issues are unjust drug laws, the issues are police shooting whoever the fuck they feel like shooting, whenever the fuck they feel like shooting them. And we can say, okay, it's happening at a higher proportional rate to black people than it is to white people, but if you're gonna say like, oh, if you had a nail gun and you're like, hey, I'm gonna put 3 nails in this black person and 2 nails in you, I'd be like, hey, why don't we just not put nails in anyone? Like, why are we doing this? What the fuck is wrong with you? And then you look at the numbers even deeper, and it's like, okay, well, there's another narrative going on here, because out of every 10,000 police encounters, if you're black, there's 3 shootings for every 10,000 police encounters. If you're white, it's 4 shootings for every 10,000 police encounters. So depending on which way you slice up the data, you can tell a totally different story, and you could actually say, hey, white people are getting shot at a proportionally higher rate. But then we've got to face the fact that, like, in 2019, whatever this last year was, I can't even think right now. There's so much that I just need to say. And I've just kept my mouth shut for so long because I didn't want to offend people, because I didn't want to speak up, because I didn't want to be perceived as racist or judgmental or whatever the fuck. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care how you judge me. I don't care what you think about this. Just whatever the fuck. Take it. Take it. This is my gift to you, okay? If there's wisdom in it for you, thanks for listening. If not, I don't care. Not my problem. My problem is to speak my perspective, my unique viewpoint, and to listen to people who want to actively engage in dialogue and not shut me down because I'm white privileged male. Because that's such a fucking cop-out. That's such a fucking cop-out. And I'm tired of hiding my voice because I feel like I'm not relevant. And I've realized that's how many other people feel because of the color of their skin, and because of the color of whatever, and because of whatever reason, because of the genitals they have, or their political views, or whatever. And whoever you are, I just want to say you're relevant. You are relevant. And I think that all voices matter. I think all lives do matter. I think black voices matter. I think black lives matter. I think white voices matter. I think white lives matter. I think red voices matter. I think red lives matter. I think yellow voices matter. And I think all these cultures matter. Yellow lives matter too. And I think all these things matter, and until we can stop individualizing it, because it is creating division, because there are people out there who can't get past that fact that you're just saying Black Lives Matter. They can't look past that, and so we have to have a different conversation, because that is creating more division. It's not creating unity. It's creating violence. It's creating riots. It's ineffective. It's a political weapon, and it's capitalizing on the pain of all humanity, of all of our pain, because we've all been enslaved at some point. We're all enslaved now. Like, that's the thing, is we are all enslaved now inside our mental prisons. We're enslaved to the media, we're enslaved to the government, we're enslaved to the bankers, we're enslaved. And if you don't stand for the freedom of all humanity, then you are ineffective and irrelevant, and you're missing the point. And I had something else I was going to say. I was on a train there, and then I stepped off it for a second around the data, around people and the rates at which they get killed. And just to say more on that, and I know I'm jumping all over the place here, and I don't care. Like, if you're tracking with me, then track with me. If not, then cool. I'm not I just have to start speaking. I have to start saying stuff. I have to start getting this out there, because I'm sitting here, I'm having conversations with myself inside my house, going back and forth and arguing with myself and saying these things out loud. It provides an opportunity, and my intention here is just to share, something that hopefully will help some of us to look at this differently. Whatever color skin you have, whatever the fuck is going on in your life, however you feel about politics and all that, like, my intention and my hope and my desire is that we can just start having these conversations and respecting respecting everyone's voices, but we have to do it in a way that's not like going out and holding these big protests in the street, where literally I feel if I went there and said what I just said to this camera, I think I would be attacked. I think I'd be hit. I think I would have a bunch of angry people yelling in my face, and they're all wearing masks, and I refuse to wear a mask because I'm not hiding my face. I'm not hiding who I am. I'm not scared of that. I'm not scared of that. I'm not living in fear enough to put a mask over my face and try and hide myself from the virus. That's a whole nother conversation, but guys, I have a heart, and you have a heart, and I'm human, and you are human, and I think if we could all start really connecting to our hearts and using our minds as well. We have to keep our minds sharp to be able to discern when our emotions are being manipulated, because that's one of the greatest weapons that the powers that be, that our controllers have, is manipulating our emotions so that we're not even able to reason. And we've got to get past that and use this to protect this from that. Send that down so we can tap into this authentic power that we have inside of us. We can bring it up and shine it forth. And there's a lot of anger right now. There's a lot of anger on all sides that needs to be transcended, that needs to be worked through, that needs to be dealt with. And anger is something that arises when someone feels their boundaries have been crossed and that they're helpless. And frankly, we all have a right to be angry. We all do. Like, you can't point the finger at any one group and say, well, that group doesn't have a right to be angry because of this narrative. No, they've got a right to be angry. They've got a right to be angry. We all have a right to be angry if we want to. And it's important to go into that, to feel that. You do not have a right to take that anger out on someone else. You do not have a right to destroy someone else's property and steal someone else's things because you are angry. You do not have that right. That is not within your rights. But if we want to move past this anger that all of us are feeling, then we've got to look inside, and we've got to come to understanding with why we're angry. And then we've got to ask the question, the most important question is how do we move past this? And what do we gain from staying in this? Those are the three questions if you want to move past anything in your life. This is like the three fucking secrets to life. Is 1, why is it there? 2, how do I move past it? And 3, what am I gaining from not moving past it? Because you're smart. You're really smart. You are wise on a very deep level, and you play games with yourself because you're getting something from holding on to that anger. You're getting something from that. And if you don't know what you're getting from it, whether it's validation or a sense of righteousness or just literally dopamine, like, it feels real good to rage about stuff and protest and feel like you're doing something. But if 1/10 of that energy was put towards actually creating something constructive, then it would be a far different story right now. Um, but yeah, those three questions. Why is this here? How do I move past it? And what am I gaining from holding on to it? Those three questions take you out of victimhood, whatever that perceived victimhood is, and back into responsibility. Because like the biggest cancers on this planet right now, it's not fucking racism, that's a symptom. It's not fucking authoritarianism, that's a symptom. It's not religious intolerance, that's a symptom. Biggest cancers on this planet is fear and victimhood, and those two things together just create this storm of like righteous indignation, which then shows up as like feeling like I've been wronged and I need to get back at the world, and then you're gonna rebel, and then you're gonna, you're just gonna be coming from the wrong place. And that brings me back to my first point, which is, like, I don't really know what to say right now. There's a lot of complex issues at stake here. A lot. It's really, really tricky to speak on this while holding these different perspectives in neutrality, and not getting too attached to one narrative or the other, because that's what we want to do. We want to know who's in my tribe and who's outside my tribe, and who is on my narrative and who's on my side and who's not on my side. And we want to create this in-group, out-group, and we do it really well. And then we fight with the other group, and then we, go back and forth, and left hand and right hand fight, and left and right fight, and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, whoever's sitting up top here is just like laughing because they don't care. They don't care if they don't care as long as people are distracted, as long as people aren't looking inward and discovering who they are and coming into a true sense of power and empowerment and sovereignty and freedom and responsibility and alignment with truth and natural law. If we all did that, racism would disappear overnight. Slavery would disappear overnight. Their police would be defunded overnight. But going out and demanding that someone else does it for you and then pressuring them, it's going to swing the pendulum so far back the other way. Like, y'all have no fucking clue what's coming, because this pendulum is being pushed so far right now. It's being pushed so far in this way by everyone who's out protesting and saying, defund the police. Fuck the USA, white privilege, all this shit. And there's all these people who are staying home, who are not protesting, who are not aligned with this, who see that this is way too far. This is a radical distortion that's being used as a political weapon. And all these people are noticing this and witnessing this. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to silently, at the next election and in culture and consciousness, swing that pendulum back the other way. And this is why, trying to force your will on the outside world in this way is always going to be ineffective. It's never actually going to work, because it's denying one of the fundamental mechanic laws of reality, which is as within, so without. So the change has to start within. Whoever you are, whatever color you are, whatever's going on, you've got to really start the change within. Which is why, Nelson Mandela, when he came out of prison, he wasn't raging, he wasn't smashing shit, he was singing. And because he had done that inner work, I think, he had come into that place of neutrality and sovereignty within himself, that he owned his sphere around him, and he wasn't available to be manipulated by outside forces.